On the passenger items portion of our test, we are going to be checking our interior seats, and we're going to be checking our emergency hatches, door, and windows. After that has been completed on the other, that you will see on the other video, we're going to now come up to the front of the bus, and then we're going to now talk about our seat. That our seat is securely mounted, our upholstery is intact, it is not cut, not damaged. The seat is securely mounted to the floor of the bus. Then we're going to now sit down in the seat, and we're going to now put on our seatbelt. And we're going to talk about the seatbelt that is securely mounted to the bus, and that is not cracked, not damaged, not frayed, and that it buckles securely. From here, we're now going to go to our key, which was in the safe start position. We're now going to turn the bus on. Once the bus has been turned on, we're now going to go to our switch panel and begin to go through our switch checks. So we're going to go to our front AC, operating properly. Driver AC, operating properly. Rear AC, operating properly. Rear heater, operating properly. Driver heater, operating properly. This one has defrost, so you're going to need to put your hands in both spots. Then from here, we're going to go to boost pump. I see the boost pump light, it's operating properly. Strobe light, I can see the light operating properly. Driver dome and passenger dome lights, you can turn them both on. They are white in color, clean and functional. Turn those off. Then we're going to go here to our master flasher. We're going to turn on the master flasher, and we're going to turn on the flashing lights. Once we turn on the flashing lights, we're going to tell them everywhere we see the lights flashing. If you look outside, you can see the lights flashing in your crossover mirrors. You can see it flashing on the dash, and you can see it flashing on your driver's panel. Now we're going to take our hand, slightly open the door. This is going to activate our reds. I can see reds in my crossover mirrors. I can also see it in my flat and convex mirror because my arms are extended, and I can also see that my lights are operating, my arms are operating properly, and my lights are operating properly. They're red in color, clean and functional. I can also see that my lights are operating properly on the dash, and I can see that it is operating properly on the driver's panel. Now I can close the door. From here, we're going to now turn off the master switch. We're going to now turn on the override. The override is going to override the ambers. You're now going to see the arms extended in your flat and your convex mirror, and you're going to see your lights are flashing and they're red in color, clean and functional. You will also see your red alternating flashing lights in your crossover mirrors and on your dash and on your driver's panel. Now you can turn this switch off. You're now going to go to no noise. When you press the no noise button, it is going to turn off all the electronics that make noise. It is operating properly. When I go to the mirror controls, my mirrors are properly adjusted to me. Now we're now going to go to our stalk. We're going to turn on the wipers, and we're going to wash the windshield. We're going to talk about the wipers, that they're not cracked, not damaged, not frayed, and that the washer properly washes the window. This is also going to be the time that you talk about the windshield from the inside. You're going to let them know that the windshield is clean, that the windshield is not cracked, not damaged, there are no obstructions, and no illegal stickers. Now we're going to go back to our stalk. We're going to now turn on the left turn signal. I can see the left turn signal being indicated. I can see it in my flat and convex mirrors because I can see the turn signal right there. You can see it. So now we're going to go to the crossover. I can see it in the crossover mirror. I can see it on the dash. It's operating properly. Now I'm going to turn on the right turn signal. I can see it in my crossover. I can see it in my flat and convex. I can see it on the dash operating properly. From here, we're now going to go into our Triple H. Triple H is high beams. I can see them in my crossover mirrors operating properly. And I can see it on the dash. I'm now going to take my hand behind the steering wheel and I'm going to turn on my hazards. I can see my hazards. They're operating properly. I can see it in my crossover mirrors. I can see it in my flat and convex mirrors on both sides of the bus. And now I can also see it at the dash. Now I'm going to turn the hazards off. I'm going to do my last H. My last H is the horn. Operating properly. Now we're going to go into our gauge cluster. We're now going to talk about the gauges. Our transmission is operating properly. The transmission temp is between 140 and 200. It is operating properly. Our DEF is at an adequate level, operating properly. Our coolant temp, our water temp, is between 170 and 200, operating properly. Our oil pressure is between 5 to 20 at idle, operating properly, 40 to 60 while driving. Our RPMs are registering our revolutions per minute, operating properly. We're going to now go over to our miles per hour. It's on 0, it's operating properly. We're going to go to our voltage. Our voltage is operating at 14 to 16 volts, operating properly. Our fuel is at an adequate level, operating properly. Then from here, we're going to go to our primary and secondary gauge. They're operating at 100, our primary, and our secondary at 120 to 125 psi, operating properly. From here, we're going to now go into our gear selector. We're going to take the gear selector and we're going to run it through the gears and back to neutral. It is operating properly. From here, we're going to open the door. It opens, closes smoothly, and latches securely, operating properly. Now that we've done that, we're going to now turn off the bus. That beeping sound is now your No Child Left Behind. As you can see, I turned the key to the left. I'm going to unbuckle my seatbelt, and I'm going to get up, and I'm going to go to the back of the bus. And as I go to the back of the bus, I'm going to press the No Child Left Behind. I activate the No Child Left Behind, and then I'm going to walk back up to the front of the bus. When I walk back to the front of the bus, I am going to immediately go into my air brake test. So as I sit back down in the seat, I'm now going to put the seatbelt back on. Give me a moment. Okay, and the seatbelt is secure. I'm going to now take my key and rotate my key to the safe start position and acknowledge my ABS light is operating properly. I'm going to let the examiner know that my wheels are chalked. I'm then going to acknowledge that I have on my primary and secondary air tanks, I have 120 to 125 psi. I am now going to go into the leak down test. I'm going to test the supply side first. So I am going to take the air brake parking brake, and I'm going to supply air to release the spring brakes. Once I push this air in, it is going to make the needles drop because I am supplying air into the system. Once those needles fall and stop falling, I can begin to count. I am going to then start counting 1 minute. When I get one in that 1 minute time frame, I cannot lose no more than 2 psi. Okay, now we're going to simulate that 1 minute has passed. So 1 minute has passed. I'm now going to take my foot and put my foot on the service brake, meaning that I'm applying air to the system. The needles again are going to fall. Once they have settled and completed falling, once they stop falling, I can then time out 1 minute. And then within 1 minute, I cannot lose no more than 3 psi. This is your applied side leak down test. The first portion was supplying air to the system. Now we're applying air. Once 1 minute has passed, now we're going to go into the warning devices and the actual spring brake deployment. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to take my foot on the service brake and begin to fan it in and out. As I begin to fan it, the brake pressure is going to fall. Around 60 psi, I'm going to get the warning light and the warning buzzer. Around 20 to 40 psi, the parking brake is going to pop out. The reason that the parking brake is going to pop out is because I no longer have enough air pressure to keep off the spring brakes. It just popped out. So now my spring brakes are locked on, meaning that the bus will not move. Now I am now going to take the key, which was in the safe start position, and start the bus. From here, we will now begin the next portion of your test, which would be to test the parking brake. So at this moment, we're going to take our foot, put our foot on the accelerator. We're going to raise up the RPMs to 1500, no higher. Once we're at 1500 RPMs, we're going to hold it there, and we're going to build the air pressure. When we get to 60 psi, around 60, the warning devices will deactivate. All right, so now that we're above 60 psi, our warning devices have turned off. As you can see, we're still continuing to build up air pressure. We're going to keep doing this until we get to 120 to 125 psi. You will know when you reached 120 to 125 psi because you will hear the pressure relief valve, which just went off, letting you know that you just loaded the tanks. The tanks are full. So once the tanks are full, I'm now going to get out of my seat. I'm going to open my entry door. I'm then going to go outside, and I'm going to remove my chocks. I'm going to take the chocks and I'm going to place them back inside of the bus. Once they are inside of the bus, I'm going to go back to my seat. I'm going to put on my seatbelt. And once I put my seatbelt on, I will start the next portion of the test. I'm going to close the door. And now I'm going to test the parking brake. I'm going to take my foot, put it on the brake pedal, engage the gear to drive, and I'm going to leave the parking brake on. I'm going to then take the bus, move my foot from the brake to the accelerator, and press it to 1500. The bus did not move. My parking brake is operating properly. From here, we're going to then go into our next test. The next test, you're going to leave the bus in drive, put your foot back on the brake, release the parking brake, and drive the bus up to 5 miles an hour. This is going to test your service brake. You're then going to drive it forward 5 miles an hour, bring it to a smooth stop. The bus did not veer to the left or to the right, meaning that the brakes are in proper adjustment and the service brake is operating properly. At that moment, you're going to then pull out your parking brake because you have released it before when you were doing the test. You're going to now apply it and put the bus in neutral, meaning that the bus is secure. At this moment, you are now going to let the examiner know that this concludes your air brake test. Take a moment to think about anything that you may have missed on the pre-trip. This is your last chance to call those items out. Once you have thought about it and you know without a doubt that you have not missed anything or misdescribed anything on the pre-trip, you can then say, this concludes my pre-trip. And that will end your pre-trip test with the air brake test. Those two are combined, so do not try to stop. If you're testing with an examiner, take command of your test and make sure that you go from your interior items, your passenger items, straight into the air brake test. From the air brake leak down test, go straight into your parking brake test. And from your parking brake test, go straight into your service brake test. And then complete all of it together. So don't take time and turn around and ask them. Go straight into the next portion of the test. Take command of this. You got this. All you got to do is study these things and you'll be great.